Struggling platinum companies are beginning to use their own product more and more in their own operations. And with the results presentation today of Impala Platinum, CEO Terence Goodlace outlined how the company is expecting to produce 2 megawatts of its own power using fuel cells which use platinum.
We have a very comprehensive real-time monitoring system at Impala, and that gives us the ability to flex and reduce our power requirements in line with Eskom's need. The other thing that we have done is we have dovetailed with the national grid, and on the basis of the national grid we reduce our power when the country needs it. We've done a lot of work on power, but we're doing it for our own good. We're looking at new technology and fuel cells for us, because that's a way of changing the way energy is produced in the country. We've been very supportive of in actual fact, a fuel cell that's been put in place at the Chamber of Mines. The Chamber of Mines is actually off the grid on a fuel cell with our platinum. We are looking at taking the whole of our refinery off grid power through putting in fuel cells. We've got a ready supply of hydrogen, which we use in the plant. That's going to be an expensive exercise, but it's at a conceptual level. We would ultimately need more than 20 megawatt of fuel cell capacity to do that. In the interim, we're at an advanced stage, feasibility stage, to put in a 2 megawatt unit, which as far as I know would probably be the biggest single unit in the Southern Hemisphere. And we are going ahead with that project to put in this 2 megawatt unit at the refinery. The benefit of that for us right now is, in actual fact, we can do away with all of our generators, we can do away with all of our peaks, and we can reduce our reliance on Eskom in that way. As for other energy efficiency potential, we are looking at energy saving mechanisms throughout the shaft system, so rather on the saving side, and that's using the conventional stuff like lighting. But one of the key aspects which Gerard and the new technology team is looking at rather using other prime movers for your main equipment underground. So we're looking at the fuel cells into our locomotives, we're looking at fuel cells into our LHDs, and we're also looking to drive hydro or electrohydraulic machinery rather than pneumatic or compressed air, which is notoriously inefficient. What's happening with the fuel cells, they're coming off a low base. They are still relatively expensive, but ultimately, as you get from an economy of scale perspective, as you get more and more units being produced worldwide and ultimately into South Africa, they will become cheaper from a capital perspective. From a pure total cost of ownership perspective, they're cheaper because there's no maintenance, there's no moving parts, there's no noise, and ultimately every 7 or 8 years all you need to do is replace the membranes and then replace them and recycle that material and then put in a new membrane.
And then the role of fuel cells. These are platinum using fuel cells. What is your time frame on your first 2 megawatts and then the 20 megawatt that you envision?
Regarding the 2 megawatt unit, I would like to try and get it done sooner rather than later. If we can get it done over the next year, I'll be very happy. As far as the bigger units are concerned, we've got to do some detailed planning because we need to integrate it and plan it into the plant. But within a year, we should probably have a concept study at least, or an order of magnitude study completed. We'll continue to work with the fuel cell manufacturer. I think what's key for us is we're not going to own the fuel cell, even this 2 megawatt unit. Bearing in mind where PGM prices are now, ideally I would have liked to have bought it ourselves. But ultimately we're going to pay for the power, and we'll facilitate. We'll also facilitate through providing the necessary platinum that's going to be used in that unit.
And are there companies available locally and internationally that can help you through this process of having fuel cells generate energy?
We're right at the cusp of that. We do have some local companies that we are working very closely with. We've recently been on a tour where our new technology expert Martin Fox has in actual fact toured with these companies to go and look at Europe and the USA, see what they're doing, especially with their fuel cell technology. And our vision would be to in actual fact manufacture all of the membranes that are used in the fuel cells in South Africa. I don't see why we shouldn't. We are, after all, still one of the world's largest supplier of PGMs, and ultimately that's part of the beneficiation process. I'm encouraged. We are in discussion through some of these fuel cell companies. We're in discussions with the DTI, and ultimately we've seen that the DTI have set up a special economic zone for platinum for Rustenburg, and we're looking to work with them on that basis.
And then underground, in the actual transport side of underground, what is the role of fuel cells there, and what is happening in your company?
We're starting to do some trial work. It's been led certainly by some of the work that Impala Platinum have done, and we're still working with these fuel cell companies to look at driving or using fuel cells in our underground trackless equipment, and ultimately to move it into our track equipment. So we're starting to do all of the pilot and the test work with those fuel cells.
That was Terence Goodlace, the CEO of Impala Platinum, spelling out how important this metal is becoming in locomotion and in energy generation.